Last night, last evening in Maastricht, in Holland, an event took place which will influence all of world history. The European society has decided to build an unusual and an incredible state. This would be a sort of United States of Europe. A good deal of national sovereignty has been handed over in politics, internal policies, defense, finance, monetary questions. Virtually all the questions agreed to compromises so as to reach a unity. Incidentally, the word federal was eliminated as a concession to British conservatives. There was sentimentalism over constitutional questions, but not too much. It was all a matter of hard figures and numbers. As the Soviet Union falls apart, only the European Union can fill the political vacuum on the continent, which is fraught with dangers of national conflict. Mr. Vance, who represents the UN, said that he would not recommending sending UN troops to Yugoslavia until the ceasefire began to be observed. You see all kinds of weaponry here. Polish tanks, Czech howitzers, German anti-tank, East German tank weapons, Singapore machine guns, Soviet Kalashnikovs. The Yugoslav army for years received both Soviet weaponry and produced its own, but in Croatia there's a real military business going on, and it's not always legal. There are all sorts of weapons and of all calibers being received in Yugoslavia. Today, contrabanders tried to bring in 11 tons of grenade launchers, and they were classified in the customs declarations as medications. That's only one instance. The Yugoslav crisis certainly does not need more weapons, and there's a UN embargo, but who's observing it? How about our country? You perhaps know better than others. Is the Soviet Union observing the embargo? The Yugoslavia does not have particular problems. Serbia doesn't, and the Soviet Union is not violating the embargo. These are the inter-Korean negotiations in Korea. This is Psen Bon-sik, representing South Korea, who said he would open American bases for inspections if Pyongyang would agree to inspection of its own nuclear bases. In Washington, there were negotiations on the Middle East. The first day, of course, there was no success, but the sides agreed to continue discussions. The attempts of Israel to negotiate only with Palestine and Jordan was declared to be a trick by Hanan Asharvi, who from Palestine. Now, I am standing here at the hottest point in this region. This is where the passions are raging. We are on the Golan Heights. Syria wants the territories back. The Israelis declare that when the Syrians were here, they were constantly shooting up the Israeli villages located around Lake Tiberias. And the Syrians were threatening all of northern Israel. The official position here is that the Golan Heights cannot be given back or even negotiated. In this lovely area, there are more than 12,000 Israeli settlers. Of them, 4,000 are located here in this administrative center, which is called Katsrina. But what do you do about the fact that this land belongs to Syria? What sort of peaceful negotiations can there be, or agreement, if Israel refused to even discuss returning the Golan Heights? It's hard to imagine an area more peaceful than this. But let's not forget that this is the Golan Heights. and war was a very frequent guest here. In New York, Terry Anderson, who formerly headed the Beirut office of the Associated Press, was greeted by David Dinkins, mayor of New York. "I find no words to express my happiness," said Mr. White. As we have learned, the former head of East Germany, Honecker, has to leave Russia by the 13th of December. He has been informed if he refuses to leave, he will be deported from the Russian Federation. Honecker has expressed a protest, has lodged a protest, and has asked for political asylum. For a number of occasions, our country has talked about privatization of trade in Moscow. There were proposals to sell the stores or rent the stores, or perhaps rent the stores without the business. Then they wanted to allow all the Muscovites to participate. Here in the mayor's office, this was further discussed. In spite of all the warnings of the astrologers, who considers that the 11th of December is an unfavorable day for privatization, it was this day that was selected by the mayor's office to discuss privatization of the stores in Moscow. And those very businessmen who formerly called Moscow a bad area for business were very active here. And the mayor's office signed a document, which was so the document might be summed up as saying, "Let's be friendly." It's very unclear. The point on privatization was very highly debated. We're closer to privatization and sale. Our meeting today has permitted us to talk about certain principal positions with regard to the Moscow City Council. Of course, privatization is a handing over as privatization. This is the Vice Mayor of Moscow to those persons who would take responsibility for supplying the city with food. But we have to make the proper steps. So things are still rather unclear as regard to privatization of trade, but the intentions are the best. There's a conflict between the press publishing house Pravda and the Ministry of the Press. The Russian authorities have handed over the building to the press publishing house, and the Pravda publishing house will now have to clear out a good deal of their offices as a measure to pressure the employees of Pravda. The electricity and water was cut off. It's Mr. Gubaryov, who is the deputy editor. He says, "We recently received notification from the Minister of Information in which it was stated that we were not an heir to the former Pravda publishing house. They want to take away our building, take away our printing presses, and put us out on the street." But I should note, to be fair, that the employees of this publishing house really had it cushy before. So the amount of consternation is considerable. This is the director of the publishing house of Pravda, and they want to for us to make room for other papers. We're doing that and find place for them in our building. We are utilizing excess space of the newspaper Pravda, and we're trying to find space for these new editorial offices. Whether we like the newspaper Pravda or not, or the television program 600 Seconds, this should be all resolved on the basis of legal actions and not by extreme measures and force. Today, in Moscow's White House, Yeltsin received a prize from the Burda Publishing House, which is a major German publishing house. This is the prize. This is a gold embossed Bambi. Among the laureates of the prize were many persons over 44 years. There's the former president of Germany, Heinemann, Teddy Kolle from Jerusalem, Hans-Dieter Genscher from Germany received it. At the ceremony, Dr. Burda stressed that this was an expression of sympathy and friendship for Yeltsin, who expressed the spirit of the people in his bold policies, and he was confident that the unified Germany and the new Russia would be factors for progress for all humanity. Mr. Yeltsin stressed that he viewed this prize as a reward to all of those who defended freedom and democracy in our country in those August days. Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin said that the government of Russia would be successful in its work and would promote stabilization in Europe and in the entire world as well. And here we have the sport section of the program. Today, there's big day for soccer. So we have Simferopol is playing in Moscow playing, and we also have Dynamo and Kiev playing Sparta. This makes the Moscow Dynamo team, makes it hard for them. They lost 1-2.